What I'm about to share with you led me to tears, so much so that I felt that I did need to share it with you. Hi, everyone. I'm Alexis Brooks. I hope you'll stay with me. I want to give you a little insight into an experience that I just had that I thought you might like to hear. Right now on Higher Journeys with Alexis Brooks. As many of you know, I returned along with a lot of other people from contact in the desert out in Indian Wells, California, about a week and a half ago. And as always, it's an enriching and emotional experience. I've been going for quite a few years now. Every year seems to get a bit more intense. I think what I'm seeing and what I'm picking up on are individuals who perhaps are spending the entire year keeping in, bottled up all of the emotions that they are having with regard to this still very elusive, very mysterious, and very taboo subject we call ET contact. Many, if not maybe most of the people that attend this conference, I'm going to say many, are indeed experiencers. Some have dealt with major trauma. I don't want to spend a lot of time on that, but know that this was a very, very emotional and exciting conference. There were a lot of things that I think were discussed that may have not been heretofore. I want to tell you about the lecture that I gave, at least give you a little thumbnail. My lecture, my presentation, dealt with the phenomenon we call intergenerational contact. So I did a presentation about unlocking what that ET link may be within bloodlines. We're talking about familial contact running in families. However, oftentimes other family members aren't even aware that there are family members within the dynamic that are also having contact. And so this lecture was really designed to not only uh, explain my thoughts around how common this phenomenon is, but ultimately how to start a dialogue within the family dynamic. You know, it's hard enough to go out in public. Not that you need to, not that everyone needs to go out in public and wear on their sleeve or on their shirt, I'm a contactee. But certainly the silence that so many people feel they need to keep around this subject can bring about an emotional toll. But what about within our own four walls, within the family? So the the presentation was chock full of sort of insights into specific individuals that I had the chance to interview that discovered at some point in their journey that they came from a lineage of contact and all that that brought with it, including trauma, dysfunction, secrets, etc. But on top of that, what I wanted to do, what I thought would be important to do as a follow-up, we typically many of the speakers will do a workshop after our main lecture or in conjunction with our main lecture. And so I thought it would be appropriate, really trying to drive home the steps that it takes for healing to occur within a family. What is that all about? How might we achieve that? So I put together a very interactive workshop, how to navigate intergenerational contact and healing, starting the family dialogue. And I want to tell you what happened. I've done a lot of work around this subject called contact, ET contact, and much of which are considered abduction scenarios. I've said this before, where all abductions are a form of contact, perhaps not all contact constitutes abduction. But here we were really focusing on individuals and families that have been abducted at some point, or at least this is how they viewed their encounters. I have worked with clients, many of you know, I coach as well in the spiritual capacity in terms of what I call conscious coaching. And I can't tell you how many, perhaps I'm going to say most of the individuals that I have coached over the years have had some form of what they would consider to be contact. And invariably, their contact encounters were somehow affecting or inhibiting their progressing in whatever their life endeavor may be. And so doing this workshop was definitely one where I had the opportunity to try some of the things that I worked with my clients on, or with, I should say, using certain protocols, very relaxed, but very powerful. And one of the things that I really wanted to bring into this particular workshop and what we were trying to achieve has to do with heart-based healing, not just healing, but heart-based intelligence. I have been a huge supporter and have worked with the Heart Math Institute. I'm sure many of you have heard of the incredible work that they've done, pioneering work, and really um, bringing about not just a theory, but evidence to show that the heart does have a form of intelligence and can be used for to create sort of a coherence between heart and brain. I've worked with Howard Martin for quite a few years now in this capacity. He's been on the show from Heart Math. And so I thought that in doing this workshop, we would try to employ some of the methods that I've used with my clients as well as with myself for this sort of opening up of first opening up the individual, opening up the heart of the individual who has had contact, but also preparing them to have a dialogue with a family member that they suspect maybe having also contact encounters, but refuses to speak with them about it for a variety of reasons. And there were quite a few individuals in the audience that had different scenarios, but there was that common thread of hurt, of feeling broken. There were some individuals I won't name in the audience who had separated from their families due to the fact that they decided to be more open about their contact encounters, and the other family members invariably would have no part of it. So there were a lot of different scenarios there. However, again, using sort of as the front and center approach for this particular workshop, I wanted to focus on three different areas of using the heart center. And I want to share a little bit with you on that today, right now. The first thing I had them do is something called heart sensing. It's a it's somewhat common, and yet it's not readily discussed how powerful it is. What I'm talking about, sitting down very quietly and not putting your hand on your heart. I had the participants just put their hands on their knees, on their legs, close your eyes, and simply get silent and feel or sense the subtle beat of the heart. The heart, it's so incredibly important. It's it's like an ancient drum. I think I used this in the actual workshop, the analogy of an ancient drum that beats, that creates a resonance and a coherence. It's a very powerful thing, and there's lots of evidence to show that if you take even a minute or so, maybe even less, maybe even 30 seconds to just sit, this isn't a meditation, but close your eyes and simply be quiet and sense and feel the beating of your heart. I say on purpose, do not put your hands on your heart because you will be able to feel it. But what I want you to do is tune into that heartbeat and fall into a resonance with that heartbeat. That does a very, very important thing. It sets the tone for the fact that you are going to be placing your attention and really kind of deferring to the heart and to the heart intelligence for whatever it is you're trying to do. So we did that. Another thing that we did, there were actually three techniques that I used. The sensing of the heartbeat was the first, and the second was something called heart-based breathing. Now, this is something that I was lucky enough to learn from my colleague and friend Howard Martin at Heart Math. In fact, he did a little segment years ago on our channel. You may be able to find it. Maybe I can even put an iCard so you can hear it for yourself. But essentially, what that is, guys, is doing a very deep from the diaphragm in breath through the nose and out. Although you are breathing through the mouth, what you're doing is putting your focus in the heart center, on the heart center, as if the out breath is coming literally emanating from the heart. It's subtle, but the first time I did it, I have to tell you, I could feel it. I could feel the difference between your typical in through the nose, out through the mouth. And even though it's coming out through the mouth, imagine almost like um, a little channel, if you will, and maybe there's steam, so anything that will allow you to really imagine what that's like, where the breath is coming out of the heart. It's very, very powerful. Now, I want to stop here and share with you that when I had the class do this exercise of in through the nose and out through the heart, there were tears. And this is I'll get into this a little bit more later, but clearly something was happening. Uh, there were people, and again, I'm always, although I'm doing the exercise along with them, I'm always looking to see, what kind of response people are having to this very, very subtle, but I'll say it again, very profound technique of heart-based breathing. Um, I think I did have people put their hand on their heart in this case. I saw tears. I saw one person kind of shaking a little bit. There was some sort of a reaction that was happening. None of it was violent at all, but it was different. There's a subtle, I'll say it again, but very, very powerful difference when you are connecting the breath with the heart. And if the heart has intelligence, not just logic intelligence, but intuitive intelligence, you are establishing a very powerful connection. Matter of fact, I want to tell you there was a chiropractor in my workshop who approached me after the workshop. He let me know what he did, and he said he told me afterward that he observed something very familiar in this breathwork exercise, where he said he could tell by watching some of the people and their responses that it was actually activating the parasympathetic nervous system, and it was triggering this state of coherence. And that really affirmed for me how effective this method is. I'm not in the medical field, obviously, but in doing the exercise, it's always great to get feedback from individuals that are familiar with these kinds of responses or these kind of reactions to this kind of work. So I do this virtually with every client that I coach individually. There are a couple of things that I do. A lot of the work that I do, as a matter of fact, is based on really focusing in on the heart. I have to just digress for a minute and say, how many times have you heard, maybe it was a parent or a teacher who said, "Don't think with your head, don't think with your heart, think with your head. Don't think with your heart, think with your head." And I've often wondered, ever since I've been doing this work, whether that was some form of indoctrination to veer us away from using the tool that we have that is perhaps the most powerful uh, to bring whatever it is we need to bring into alignment. That's again a digression, but the heart is incredibly important. Now, I want to go into a couple of individuals, and I'm not going to name. I'm going to call these two defining moments that occurred in this workshop. This was powerful, guys, and I have never seen so many tears, including myself. Two people I want to just very briefly mention what happened with them. I'm not going to use their real names for obvious reasons. This is a very private affair, and they were very courageous to be able to be open in this workshop and come forward and talk about some of what they're going through. Remember, what we are talking about is the contact phenomenon, not just with the individual, but perhaps within the family, and yet no one is talking about it. We're trying to get that dialogue going. I'm going to call the first person Cassandra. Let's call her Cassandra. Tears began to flow as soon as we began this, as I said, this heart-based breathing, and she remained in tears throughout. I could tell there was some form of a release, and at some point, I had to stop the workshop just to hand her a tissue. She was kind of moving around in her purse to see if she could find one, and give her a hug. And the tears continued. And as I sat and I continued to watch, the participants go through the exercises, I couldn't help but I think I fell into resonance with Cassandra, feeling for a moment what she was perhaps feeling. I'm not going to go into any detail about her situation. I've later learned some of what she's gone through, and how she's become estranged from her family in part because of her being open about talking about her experiences. It's quite something. However, this is just one of the things that I noticed, again, the tears, but also the stories that started to come out. Another individual who I'm going to call Suzanne, uh, her situation we learned about it. Part of what I did in this class or this workshop was I wanted to do something that I call the 3 R's that I'll explain to you. One of which is rehearsal. I'll go back to what that's all about in a minute. But we did a role play. That's a second R, role play exercise where I wanted a couple of volunteers to come up and kind of play out a potential scenario where they might be approaching a family member. It could be a mother, an aunt, a sibling. In this case, for Suzanne, it was a daughter, her daughter, and this is a real life situation. And I brought up another individual to see how they might have this sort of role play of approaching the family member with this idea that they too are having some kind of phenomena happening to them, but they refuse to talk. Now, in this case, yes, indeed, there were tears. But what I did here, and I'm going to show you a couple of pictures of, I'm going to blur Suzanne's face out, but I'll show you where we sat at the front, literally holding hands. And I was the one playing Suzanne. She was playing her daughter. And gosh, I wish I had a little bit of video to show you. Unfortunately, I don't. But I went through an exercise in which uh, I used language that was certainly not triggering, but very calming, looking into her eyes, holding her hand to try to get her to open up. Not to try to get her, to invite her to open up. The daughter. Remember, I'm playing Suzanne. She's playing the daughter. And it was very effective. That was the role play. We just did that with two people. Or actually, it was a gentleman that came up first, and then I decided to step in and give perhaps an alternative for how one might approach a family member. And every situation is going to be different. We're talking about different personalities, different scenarios, different levels of perhaps trauma or shame. But I wanted to at least offer a little bit of an idea of how you might approach a family member in this regard. Let's go back to rehearse. Rehearse is, I wanted to make that the first R that I talked about, rehearsing. We're not talking about visualization, guys. We're talking about rehearsing. Just a quick little tidbit. Take two people, very well known in their field, in the sports world. As a matter of fact, we're talking about Muhammad Ali, since passed, of course, as well as Michael Jordan. It's well known that these two extraordinarily talented athletes didn't just visualize prior to having a boxing match or a basketball game. They would literally go through the entire process of playing that out, invoking all of the senses, the smells, the sights, the sounds of the crowds cheering, and of course, what they would be doing with their opponent or the opposing team, rehearsing. It's a very more than subtle, but a very powerful difference when it comes to it is a form of visualization, but what you're doing is invoking all of the senses, and I think it kind of triggers some kind of a play out when it actually happens, when you're rehearsing and you're literally almost projecting yourself into a future scenario with all the senses. you know, Somehow reality can't help in many cases to mimic it when it actually happens. Anyway, without going too far off on that, I find that a very powerful technique that we can all use. And so I brought that just sort of in the explanation of what rehearsing versus visualization actually is. Rehearsing what it would be like to sit down with that family member. Maybe it's a spouse, it could be a friend, but in this case, we were talking specifically about family members that you're hoping to approach. So we did the rehearsal, then we did the role play. And then, and I mentioned Suzanne and how powerful that was. And she also approached me afterward and said, Alexis, I can't tell you how much that meant to me. I hope I get to talk to Suzanne again, as well as Cassandra, because, every single person that you meet in this regard, you cannot and do not forget because of their individual stories and how important it is to them. And you want so desperately to be able to assist in some way. And as I say to my clients, I'm not here to fix this for you. I'm here to help you help yourself. And so whenever I do something like this, it's very emotional for me. It'd be virtually impossible for me to shut down my own, empathetic uh, uh, aspect and just be the teacher. No, no, no. I'm in this with you. These are a case in point. I want to tell you about one more. This is not an individual that was actually in my workshop. He and his wife were in my main lecture. I will not mention their names either. I'm just going to say this gentleman. They're husband and wife filmmakers, and they actually wanted to take me aside for a little bit and interview me about an upcoming film they're working on having to do with contact and also intergenerational contact. Interestingly, guys, this is a far more common phenomenon than we might think, as well as being a contactee. But if you're a contactee, I have to tell you, think twice about whether or not you come from a family of contactees, whether they're talking about it or not. Okay. That said, I agreed to sit down with this husband and wife, lovely, lovely couple. We actually went off site to talk for a few minutes. And in the course of talking with this gentleman, um, dealing with his own uh, trauma, I would say for sure, having to do with his contact. I'm going to put the fan on because it's getting really hot in here. Um, Dealing with the fact that his father, he suspected, was a contactee, but never fully admitted it. And I believe his father is now gone, so there's not much he could do about that in terms of having a dialogue with him. But also his son, who he believes is having encounters. So there was a lot of pent up frustration, fear, and I think anger in that frustration. And so, without going into detail about what he and I talked about, and a lot of this was on camera. I don't know whether they're going to use this ultimately in their film or not, but he too was brought to tears. He too was brought to tears. Um, it's hard even to talk about all of this. There were good tears too. Tears are not, listen, let me say this. Tears are not necessarily a bad thing. In many cases, they're needed. It's a release, it's a purge, and it needs to happen. Maybe more tears need to flow, as long as it is a step and a positive step to healing. And that's what doing this workshop was all about for me. So I have to ask you the question, look, what if contact isn't just about the others out there, the others, right? The non-human intelligence. What if it's about the people right next to us, our parents, our children, our ancestors long gone? What if it's about that? Bottom line, being open and honest about contact encounters happening within the family. It's not just a phenomenon, but it's a pathway to healing if we're open and honest about the fact that these things are happening amongst us. During the workshop, I felt it. When we opened our hearts, and this is what we focused on, using the heart as the center for healing, it actually felt like the ancestors were listening. In fact, I'll tell you, one participant said during one of our exercises that she felt literally an ache, not a hopefully it wasn't too heavy of an ache, but she felt an ache in her heart. And that she said somehow it felt as if the presence of some of her family members that had been long gone were kind of showing up. So doing these approaches can bring about some results that you may not expect. As I said, when I'm working with my coaching clients, this will often happen, and that's what's supposed to happen. I always say, dearest, greatest spirit, dear God, let this session, let this conversation go exactly where it needs to go for the highest good of all involved, us, for the highest good. And with that, I release and allow what's supposed to come out of a session, an interview that I do, or this conversation, what it needs to do to evoke the highest good and the greatest positive change. Okay, I think I'm going to leave it there. Listen, I will say, if you look, I don't know who's listening here, but if this what I said to you today resonates in any way, if it's relatable in any way, I do offer one-on-one coaching. This wasn't just for that, but I'll remind you of that. I'll have a link below if you're interested in learning a little bit more about it. Look, I have to tell you, I do a lot of things as a journalist, as a writer and author, as an interviewer, but this is probably one of the most gratifying parts of the work that I do because I get to help others help themselves. And I stress that, help others help themselves. all of us need a lift every now and then. I do, God knows. So I do invite you, if this resonated with you at all, feel free to check out. You can go to the website, higherjourneys.com, look for conscious coaching, and we can have a chat about it. In the meantime, let's do this. I figured to end this commentary today, conscious commentary, I'd leave you with a meditation. I'm going to leave you with a meditation that I did at the end of our workshop. It's only about eight minutes long. It's a meditation that's based, again, on focusing on the heart-based breathing and really preparing to radiate out. This was the third R, radiate out to that family member, that loved one that you're preparing to approach in the most loving, positive way possible. So we'll end it with this. I'm going to play the meditation for you. You can keep your eyes open if you like. I have a nice little visual that you can use, or close your eyes, whatever makes you comfortable. So enjoy that, and I will talk to you soon. Thanks for listening and watching. Take care. Let's begin by gently closing your eyes and taking a deep, soft breath in through your nose and exhaling slowly, not through the mouth, but gently through the heart. Again, breathe in through the nose and out through the heart. One more. In through the nose and out through the heart. Now, with each breath, allow your entire body to begin releasing tension. Relax your shoulders. Soften your jaw. Let your hands rest gently. Release your belly. And allow the muscles in your legs and feet to completely unwind. Now bring your awareness directly to your heart, not just physically, but emotionally. Feel free to place your hand on your heart if you'd like, as a reminder to stay present. Begin to feel your heartbeat. Don't try to force it. Just feel it. Sense it. A gentle rhythm, like an ancient drum echoing the rhythm of your soul. Now, from this centered place, begin to breathe out energy from the heart, but this time with intention. With every exhale, radiate compassion. With every exhale, radiate peace. With every exhale, radiate safety. Now, I want you to bring to mind a specific family member, someone you feel may have also experienced contact, but with whom the dialogue has not yet begun. Picture them not in conflict or silence, but in a calm, neutral state. See them simply standing or sitting across from you, relaxed, receptive. Now, with your next breath, radiate your heart energy toward them. Radiate your heart energy toward them. This is not to convince or coerce or even trigger. This is an invitation, an energetic signal of love. Let them feel the energy you're sending. I see you. I honor your path. When you're ready, I am here. Pause and breathe into this energy field between you. Now, let go of needing an answer. Let go of needing a result. Remain in your heart. Remain grounded in your heart. Stay in the frequency of love. Stay in the vibration of trust. In this moment, you've already started the healing. Let's take one more deep breath in together, deep from the diaphragm. In through the nose, and exhale through the heart. Now, I want you to begin to bring your awareness back into the room. Wiggle your fingers. Roll your shoulders. And when you're ready, gently open your eyes.